It was an ordinary day in court, or so everyone thought. The room was tense, filled with the usual hustle of lawyers, witnesses, and the quiet murmur of spectators. But everything came to a halt when a little black girl, no older than 6, stood up, pointed at the judge, and said with innocent conviction, "You're my dad." Gasps filled the courtroom as all eyes turned to the man sitting on the bench, stunned, speechless, and visibly shaken. Who was this child? How could she make such a bold claim? And what was the shocking truth that would soon turn this seemingly routine day into one nobody would ever forget? Stay with us as we unravel this incredible story of unexpected connections, buried secrets, and a twist that left everyone in the room questioning what they thought they knew. You won't want to miss what happens next. It was an ordinary day in court, or so everyone thought. The room was tense, filled with the usual hustle of lawyers, witnesses, and the quiet murmur of spectators. But everything came to a halt when a little black girl, no older than 6, stood up, pointed at the judge, and said with innocent conviction, "You're my dad." Gasps filled the courtroom as all eyes turned to the man sitting on the bench, stunned, speechless, and visibly shaken. Who was this child? How could she make such a bold claim? And what was the shocking truth that would soon turn this seemingly routine day into one nobody would ever forget? Stay with us as we unravel this incredible story of unexpected connections, buried secrets, and a twist that left everyone in the room questioning what they thought they knew. You won't want to miss what happens next. The room was frozen in disbelief, the girl's words echoing in everyone's mind. The judge, a man known for his calm demeanor and sharp decisions, was now visibly unsettled. He stared at the little girl, his gavel resting forgotten in his hand. Whispers rippled through the courtroom like wildfire. Who was this child? And why was she claiming such a connection to the man presiding over the case? The girl's mother, sitting just a few feet away, looked mortified. She tried to pull her daughter back into her seat, but the little girl wouldn't budge. "Mummy said you used to know her," the child added, her innocent eyes locked on the judge. The tension thickened as the man's face turned pale. His gaze flicked toward the mother, recognition flashing across his face for just a moment. But before he could say anything, one of the lawyers cleared their throat, trying to regain control of the chaotic room. Questions swirled in the air, unspoken but heavy. Was the girl telling the truth? Had the judge's past somehow come back to haunt him in the most unexpected way? The case being argued moments earlier was now forgotten. All focus was on the judge, the mother, and the girl who had just shattered the courtroom's order. People in the gallery exchanged looks, some intrigued, others skeptical. Was this a calculated move by the mother, or was it the raw honesty of a child who didn't understand the weight of her words? And what about the judge? Why wasn't he denying it outright? His silence only deepened the mystery. The courtroom's energy shifted as everyone waited, holding their breath for what would happen next. The judge finally cleared his throat, but his voice faltered as he tried to speak. "Young lady," he began, his tone a mixture of authority and unease, "this is highly unusual. Please return to your seat." But the girl didn't move. Instead, she clung tighter to her mother's hand, her innocent eyes filling with tears. "You are my dad," she said again, her voice trembling but steady. "Why don't you remember me?" The room erupted in murmurs, and the judge's expression darkened, his composure cracking under the pressure. He looked toward the mother, his eyes filled with unspoken questions. She avoided his gaze, clutching her daughter protectively. A bailiff stepped forward, unsure of whether to intervene, but the judge raised a hand, stopping him. His voice, now quieter, addressed the woman. "Do you have something to say about this?" he asked, his tone sharp yet edged with something deeper, fear, perhaps, or regret. The woman hesitated, glancing around the courtroom, aware of the weight of every eye on her. Finally, she took a deep breath, her voice shaking as she spoke. "I didn't want it to happen like this," she said, "but she's telling the truth. You are her father." Gasps filled the room again, louder this time. The judge's face turned ashen as he sank back into his chair. His lips parted, but no words came out. The spectators leaned forward, caught in the whirlwind of this unfolding drama. Some whispered their theories, while others sat in stunned silence. Was this a case of mistaken identity, or had the judge unknowingly fathered a child? And if he had, why was the truth coming out now, in such a public and dramatic way? The mother, now visibly trembling, continued. I tried to reach out before, but you moved on. You didn't want to hear it. Her words struck like a thunderclap, heavy with implications. The judge's jaw tightened, his hands gripping the edges of his desk as if to steady himself. The little girl, unaware of the storm brewing around her, looked up at him with a heartbreaking innocence. Why didn't you want me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The tension in the room was unbearable, every moment stretching into an eternity. The judge opened his mouth, struggling for an answer, but before he could respond, the court doors swung open. A man in a sharp suit entered, his presence commanding attention. I have information that changes everything, he announced, holding a folder tightly in his hand. The courtroom fell silent once again, all eyes shifting to this unexpected arrival. Whatever was in that folder promised to blow the case, and the lives of everyone involved, wide open. The man in the suit stepped forward, his eyes scanning the room with a mix of urgency and determination. He didn't waste any time. Your Honor, he said, addressing the judge with an unsettling familiarity. I've come with proof that you— He paused, glancing at the mother and the little girl before continuing, have been missold. The judge's eyes narrowed and his body stiffened. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. This wasn't just about a forgotten paternity. There was something more, something bigger at play. The man opened the folder, revealing documents that seemed to confirm everything the mother had claimed. But then, as the lawyer began to read from one of the pages, his voice faltered. This can't be right. The room was on edge, unsure whether the lawyer had misread the documents or if the truth was truly about to surface. The judge's face was unreadable, his hands trembling just slightly. He looked at the man, his usual confidence completely gone. What are you talking about? The words were barely a whisper, his usual authority lost in the storm of uncertainty now raging in the courtroom. The lawyer stepped closer, and with a gravely serious tone, he dropped a bombshell. You're not the father. The words hung in the air, thick and heavy. The courtroom fell completely silent. The mother's face went pale, and the little girl looked up at her, confused, as if trying to make sense of what was happening. But you are connected, the lawyer continued, his voice lowering with intensity. The child's father is someone else, someone much closer to you than you realize. The shock of it hit everyone like a tidal wave. The judge's eyes flickered with recognition. He knew exactly who the lawyer was talking about. The woman's gaze shifted toward the judge, then back to the lawyer, her expression betraying nothing. She seemed to brace herself for what was coming. The man you thought was the father, the lawyer said, pausing for effect, is actually your brother. Gasps exploded throughout the room. The judge recoiled, his eyes widening in disbelief. His brother. The very thought seemed impossible. The lawyer cleared his throat, breaking the silence. There's more, he said, his tone grave. The room stilled again as everyone braced for yet another bombshell. The documents not only prove that the child's father is your brother, but also reveal a cover-up. He flipped through the papers, his voice steady but urgent. The child's paternity was hidden deliberately, and there's evidence of forged signatures on legal documents. The mother's face crumpled as tears began streaming down her cheeks. I had no choice, she said, her voice shaking. Your brother, he made me sign those papers. He didn't want anyone to know. He said it would ruin his life. Her confession hit like a hammer, each word carrying the weight of years of secrets. But I couldn't keep it from her forever. She deserved to know where she came from. The judge's expression hardened. His brother, the man he had trusted all his life, had not only betrayed him, but had also abandoned his own child. A mixture of anger and heartbreak washed over him. "Where is he?" the judge demanded, his voice cold and sharp. "Where is my brother now?" The lawyer hesitated, then delivered the final twist. "He's closer than you think," he said quietly. "He's in this courtroom." All eyes turned to the back of the room as a man stood up, his face pale and tense. It was one of the courtroom spectators, a man who had been sitting silently among the crowd the entire time. The judge's jaw tightened as recognition set in. His brother, the man responsible for this chaos, had been there all along, watching it unfold. The brother stepped forward, his hands raised as if in surrender. "I didn't know she'd do this," he said, his voice shaky. I thought it was better this way. I didn't know how to handle it." The tension in the room reached its breaking point.